Alright, welcome to my Fantasy Grounds quick and easy character creation. The idea here is to show you how to make a character for 5th edition D&D as quickly as possible with no frills. We're going to go ahead and do a Cleric because it is one of the more difficult classes to create, mainly because they get every spell in the book. So first, you go to the PC tab, click the little brown edit button, and the plus sign to create a new character. Once your character sheet is up and on the screen, the first thing you want to do is your ability scores. I'm going to use the standard array that is used for Adventurers League. And since this is going to be a cleric of light, they're kind of like fire spellcasters. So we're going to focus on what will work best with them. A good wisdom score, decent dex for defense, followed by constitution. And then they're kind of a charismatic character. They're the face of the group. You can also go for the more knowledgeable based cleric. If that's the case, then you'd want your intelligence higher than your charisma. And then in this instance, we're actually going to make the intelligence the dump stat of 8. All right, so once you've got your ability scores, then you want to go ahead and do your race. So you click on library and you go to races. Depending on which expansions you have, there can be a lot of them. In this case, we're going to go ahead and go with ASMR because they're kind of cool and new. Once you select ASMR, it's going to automatically add the +2 bonus to Charisma and the racial abilities. And since we're a cleric, we want the Protector ASMR because it adds to your Wisdom score. Once you've added your race, you can actually see all of their abilities: Celestial Resistance, Healing Hands, Light Bearer, Radiant Soul. And if you want to see what those do, just click the little dragon and it brings up the descriptor of what those abilities are. It's important that you look through those because you're going to have to add things manually, like adding the light cantrip. You'll want to go to actions and actually add that as a spell. And some of those have the links directly in the ability, making life a little easier than having to track the whole thing down. Okay, so once you've added your race, it's automatically adjusted your ability scores accordingly. And so that's fantastic. Next, we're going to do background. Background's going to add some starting skills, your starting gold, and some equipment. In this case, we are going to go ahead and go with Alkalite because that is the recommended background for clerics. But I recommend going through those and picking whatever suits your fancy. Once you've dragged and dropped Acolyte under the background tab, click the dragon and see everything it adds because you'll need to go through and fill some of that out. In this case, it gives us insight and religion automatically, so we don't have to do anything there. Those have been added. But it gives you 2 languages of choices. So under abilities, you see we've got 2 of choice under languages. So you'll need to actually manually come in here, delete that, and enter in 2 languages of your choice. In this case, we're going to choose Elven and Dwarven, or Dwarvish, however you want to put that. Both are technically correct. All right, so we've got Acolyte, and then we're going to go ahead and go to Inventory and add the equipment that the Acolyte gives. My recommendation for equipment: move your reference screen up to the side, go to Library, and click Items, and you're going to get this screen with a lot of stuff on it. And it's going to feel a little overwhelming because you're like, where do I go to get my equipment? Just type in the name right here in the search field and ignore all of that. So in this case, we've got a holy symbol, and we'll go ahead and add that. Always try to, I don't know, I find that for Fantasy Grounds, adding from the player's handbook or a standard, and when it's blank, works best. When you start adding from the later references like Curse of Strahd and other adventures and whatnot, for whatever reason, they didn't quite code them as well as they could have. So there's a few bugs with that, like adding the packs from Tomb of Annihilation versus Player's Handbook doesn't actually add everything from the pack, and we'll get to that. But all right, so we've got Holy Symbol, and then we can add a prayer book or prayer wheel. This is kind of neat. We're going to go ahead and add a prayer book, but there isn't a prayer book, so just type book, because book's an item, and then we're going to grab that, and we're going to add it here. So now we have a book, and once you've added it to inventory, you can adjust it as you see fit. So we're going to call this prayer book, and then we're going to click the little dragon, and we're going to click the little lock screen, and we're going to change the descriptor on here. All right, we know what this book is. All right, so it's a book of prayers for the Lethanderite faith, filled with illuminated manuscript and intricate calligraphy. This book is a series of prayers and rituals for the faith of the light. And whatever flavor text you want to add in there, but keeping it simple. All right, so we've got our prayer book. You could have technically worded that to wheel, whatever works for you. All right, incense. Now this one's fun as well. This is a great example of you can't find what you're looking for. This says it's 5 sticks. Sticks of incense don't exist in the items list, so let's just grab a block of incense and add it on here and roll with it. One block sounds like 5 sticks. I don't know what a block of incense is either, but I'm just going to go with it. Vestments. We have vestments. Those are the ritual garb you wear during your priestly rituals. And then set of common clothes, because you probably don't want to wear your vestments when you're doing your adventuring. So you have your common clothes, and then a belt pouch containing 15 gold pieces. So we're going to add pouch. Now, for your gear, under treasure here, you notice everything's blank because this is campaign agnostic. But when the GM hands out parcels, it's all in the abbreviated form of your coins. So add that now and save yourself some heartache. So CP, SP, GP, EP, and PP. And then when the GM hands out parcels, those will automatically sort themselves accordingly. And that's it. You've got your background done. You've got all your gear from it, the whole 9 yards. Next, we're going to go ahead and add your class. And the reason why we did this kind of last is because once you add class, it's going to calculate your hit points and all that other fun stuff. And now we've already got a lot of what's needed in there, and Fantasy Grounds will do the heavy lifting for us. So we're going to go to classes, and we're going to go ahead and add Cleric. It doesn't really matter which source you pick Cleric from. It's going to try and pop in everything from every source that you've got. So if you notice, we've got here Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, Options, Player's Handbook, Xanthar's Guide to everything. And so we're going to grab Cleric, and we're just going to drag and drop it right here on the class, and boom. It asks us what skills we did. We already did Insight and Religion from our background. Now we're going to pick Persuasion and Medicine, because this guy's a face, so we're doing Persuasion instead of History. And now the domain, we said Lethanderite Light Priest, so light domain, lots of lighting things on fire. It's fun for everybody, except the DM. Abilities, now you can look at everything it added. Your bonus cantrip here for that, being both ASMR and being light based, you get light as a free cantrip. Unfortunately, those don't stack to do anything special. Oh well. The light domain, you've got your domain-based spells, so let's go ahead and add those now. We get Burning Hands and Fairy Fire. All right, and those are always. I'm not sure if it's like the Paladin where they're always prepared or not. So let's take a look here. Blue, blue, blue. Domain. I believe those are always prepared, no matter what. They don't count against your prepared spells. They're always in there, which is the benefit. You'll notice some domains add spells that you've already got in the Cleric spell list, and that's the point, is you don't have to worry about preparing them. So if we go to actions here, collapse the little spells, change mode to prepared, and we can just click both of those. So when we get back into that, they'll already be here. All right, so now that we've got our spells, let's see, Shelter of the Faithful's background, spellcasting, Warding Flare. All right, so when you are attacked by a creature within 30 feet of you that you can see, you use your reaction to impose disadvantage on the attack roll. So there's really nothing that needs to be created mechanically for this. The GM needs to remember that you're using Warding Flare. You have to declare that ahead of time, and kind of go from there. All right. The rest of the class abilities is going to include inventory. So we click the little dragon under the Cleric class, move it over over here, scroll down to the starting equipment. Now you can click these links here. They bring up some useful lists, but I find they take up a huge chunk of the screen and cannot be resized, which is frustrating. So I just go to the library, click items, and once again, rely on the happy little filter to give me what I need. So in this case, I'm going to choose mace because I didn't pick a war domain. All right. And so mace. Now, unlike the rest of your gear, when you add a weapon or armor, it automatically marks it as equipped with this little toggle here that you can select, and that puts it under the actions tab. It's an equipped item, and so that's super useful. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and add scale mail. It also automatically equips it. A light crossbow and 20 bolts. Since we already have a mace, there's no point in adding another simple weapon unless you want a backup mace for whatever reason, but I can't stress the usefulness of a decent crossbow or mundane weapon. You never know when you're going to be in an area where magic is no bueno. Bolts you can do different ways. I just add the little 20 stack because you'll track ammo through the actual actions screen to see how much you have. And then, all right, so for packs, you've got Priest Pack and Explorer's Pack, plus a shield and holy symbol. And I know it's worded a little weird, so it makes you think that the shield and holy symbol only comes with the Explorer's Pack. There is a comma there separating it. It was poorly written. No, you get that shield and holy symbol regardless of which pack you pick. In this case, we are going to pick an Explorer's Pack because we took the Acolyte background. If you don't take Acolyte background, you can get a lot of your Priest gear from the Priest Pack. So that's kind of why both of those are in there and make it super convenient. So when I start adding Explorer's Pack, as I said earlier, like we've got one here from Tomb of Annihilation. Unfortunately, it doesn't add the gear from the Explorer's Pack. It's not that convenient. It adds it as a single line item. Whereas if I take it from the player's handbook and add it in here, it adds all of the items, which is much better for those of us who like to track the individual things. Your mileage may vary. All right, so now that we've got our inventory, we want to sort some of it. So what you can do here is you can go, okay, bedroll. Well, that's going to be in my backpack, and as you start typing that, that's auto-filled in here, and you hit, oops, do not hit enter. It adds a blank line. It was tab that I was looking for. Once again, the edit button is your friend. So close common, backpack, and that's interesting the way it's doing that. Vestments, backpack. I suppose you're not really looking to your close common. You're probably going to wear those. We'll mark those as equipped. Let's see, holy symbols worn, incense. Those will go into the backpack. Mess kit, backpack. Pouches worn, prayer book, backpack. Rations, backpack. You know, as rations, it shows 1 day, but there's 10 of them. Backpack. Backpack. And now everything's kind of showing here under backpack. It should have moved backpack above them. This is a little buggy, and I've never quite understood its logic on it. But the general idea is it's supposed to put all of these under your backpack. And it kind of rearranged them differently. Anyways, your mileage will vary on this. The idea is it's telling you where each of those items are. Sometimes it sorts it properly, and other times it bugs completely out. Don't forget our 15 gold piece from being an acolyte. All right, so then once we've got that done, we go to actions. You know, we have our spells here that come with our racial and initial class abilities, but now we need to add cleric spells. So let's see, is it going to give us a quick link? It is. You can either do the quick link or under library you can go to spells. So here we have all of the cleric spells listed out for us. You get 3 cantrips at first level. So in this instance, we're going to add mending because repairing gear is fantastic. Sacred Flame, a nice saving throw based effect. And then you can either pick Spare the Dying or Thaumaturgy. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick Thaumaturgy. Although if you're doing Tomb of Annihilation, Spare the Dying is really good at earlier levels and keeping your player characters from becoming permadead, especially if you're out of healing spells. Spare the Dying is fantastic. Also, if you're a Warlock of the Undying Pact, Spare the Dying is fantastic because it gives hit points back. Alright, so now the tricky part. First level spells, clerics get access to every single one of them. So we're literally just going to go one by one here and add them all. You don't have to drop them anywhere specific. You can kind of just drop them on the page and it'll automatically sort them to where they need to go. But just one by one, grab them all and drag them over. And I'll help you figure out some decent spells. Once again, this is all just advice on what spells to prepare. But since we're going for a Lathanderite, Fire Mage Cleric thingy, your low-level spells are Burning Hands and Fairy Fire. And so Burning Hands is a great up-close and personal spell for frying the crap out of your enemies. And so it does kind of help with deciding what spells to use. All right, so we go back into prepared mode. We got 4 spells that we can pick now. All right. One of the staples, Bless, is such a fantastic spell. It really aids your party and makes them kind of unstoppable in more difficult encounters. If you have a situation with lots and lots of bad guys kind of filling the battlefield, a good, well-placed Bless spell concentrated throughout the entire combat or up to a minute is a great way to help turn the tide against the Dungeon Master. All right, since we have Burning Hands, you have 2 healing spells. Cure Wounds, which requires you to touch your target, and you can see that in the descriptor. Range is touch, but it heals a D8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, so a really good chunk of hit points, especially at first level. The other is Healing Word, which has a 60-foot range, but only heals a D4 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Since we're going to be up close and personal, Burning Hands only has a 15-foot range. We're going to go ahead and go and do Cure Wounds because we're going to be close to the front line party members that are in the thick of things. So Cure Wounds is a bit more effective. You can do both if you want. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're building this guy out to be more damage based. Okay, so we've got Bless, we've got Cure Wounds, and then you could do a nice ranged spell of Guiding Bolt or a close spell of Inflict Wounds. We're going to go with Inflict Wounds. This is your, oh look, that's a boss spell, and you want to do as much damage to him as humanly possible, whereas Burning Hands is better for clearing a room of bad guys. Inflict Wounds is better for that single target where you need to just melt something's face. Now we have one more spell floating around here because we've only done 3. So you can kind of have fun with that. In this particular instance, we're going to go with... We're going to do Healing Word, just to add that extra bit of utility. You never know. Sometimes the DM pulls a fast one, and you've got bad guys that come in from behind. And then once you do that, switch your mode to combat, and it should have actually collapsed the list. Once again, sometimes Fantasy Grounds acts a little weird. It should only show my prepared spells. But it does mark them, so kind of letting you know which ones you have prepared, making it a little easier to sort through the list. You keep track of your spells with these little marks here. All right, for the last part of character creation to wrap this up is going to be under the Notes tab, where you've got all of this extra fluff. Now, what's important about this fluff is this is your character. This is what you're bringing to the table to add to the story itself. And if your DM is doing a story-based game and not just some meat grinder dungeon crawl, then it's super important that the DM and you go through this information, because the personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws are how you get inspiration. Inspiration is fantastic to be spent during the game to give you or your ally advantage or force the GM into disadvantage on a single roll. It's fantastic. This guy's an ASMR, so for the name, I'm going to call him Elevon Vane. I like using misspelled versions of terms of arrogance for celestial beings because I'm a terrible human being. All right, gender in this case is male because I choose that that's going to be his gender, but once again, your mileage may vary. Do what you want. Being a half celestial being, maybe his gender is a bit more fluid or nondescript. Read the racial descriptions for that type of race, and obviously it is your character, but run everything by the DM to make sure that they're cool with what you're doing and it fits well into their storyline. Okay, so we're gonna make him 6'2", tall, imposing, charismatic figure, and 215 pounds. Okay, so we got that in there. Alignment, we're gonna make him neutral good, and his deity is Lathander. Okay, so for personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, you can make these your own. You get 2 personality traits, 1 ideal, 1 bond, 1 flaw. In this case, we're going to actually go to the Acolyte screen, though. I'm going to show you how this works in Fantasy Grounds. If you scroll down to your personality suggested characteristics, you can bring this up as a table, and then just drag and drop what you want in here. So in this case, we're going to say that he sees omens in every action. The gods try to speak out. We just need to listen. So you drop that in here. And then you want to add one more. And so he idolizes a particular hero of his faith. And we add that in as well. Now I put a space at the end of the period because if you don't, it does kind of flush it right up against there. Drag and drop works great. Same with ideal. We're going to say this guy tries to prove himself worthy of his god's favor. And you can modify these as well. Just drag and drop them into there and then just adjust the text, flavor them, make them your own. These are how you're choosing to roleplay your character, so don't feel conformed. Even in Adventurers League, they recommend, having fun with these and figuring stuff out. Bonds, he owes his life to the priest who took him in when his parents died, which this could be his hero that he idolizes. I'm having issues dragging and dropping. There we go. Okay, and then flaw. This is the fun part. I know some people kind of chafe under this, but I find this to be the funnest part of role playing. Don't overdo your flaw. Your flaw is often very subtle. We as human beings tend to kind of celebrate flaws right now, and I think that's a faux pas of cultural characteristic. It is what holds us back. It's what trips us up. But when blended properly, when balanced, all things in moderation, flaws become some of the funnest things to role play and some of the best challenges to overcome. So once again, your flaw isn't something that restricts you. It is a challenge that your character and you as a person seek to overcome. So in this case, we're going to say he judges others harshly. Himself, though, more severely, because he can't live up to the standards he set for himself, idolizing his idealized version of this hero of his faith. And so that becomes an issue for him. So, and then you can add appearance and other notes as you see fit. That's pretty much it. One last thing, portrait for your character. All right, there's some standard default character portraits, but I've added 2 custom ones to do that. You want to tailor a picture. Pinterest is fantastic for that. Grab a picture, edit it, snag the head, kind of make it look like a glamour shot or a portrait because you're not going to have much room here. And then if you click the little folder button, it does pop out a little screen where you can drag and drop that picture into the directory where those are located at, and then they show up on here for you. So we're going to pick this guy with the cool tattoos on the side of his head. And that is our picture. That will show up as your token in combat and other scenarios. And that's pretty much the gist of character creation. There's more advanced things you can do, but just for making your character, getting it prepped where you need to go. One thing to overlook in this case, I've noticed my AC is 16, so me, after making a big deal of pointing out how you get an extra holy symbol and shield, I totally didn't add it. So I'm going to go back through and grab that real quick. Shield, and once again it starts that out equipped. Now, for the second holy symbol, since I've already got a holy symbol, in the equipment guide for Player's Handbook, there's actually 3 different types of holy symbol. I'm going to choose Reliquary, because this you can attach to your shield. The idea is it makes your shield into your holy symbol, and I'm even going to put shield here, and bam. And of course it organizes it to where the Reliquary is under the shield. If only it would do that with the backpack. What a concept. I hate this thing sometimes. Anyways, so now my shield is melee, and if I go back to main, my AC is 18, where it should be. And if you click the little magnifying glass, it even shows you armor, shield. You can see the full calculation for that. The magnifying glasses are your friend under actions for your spells. You can click it to bring up more details on your spells themselves. The display here where it shows group, go to actions and it gives you your quick buttons for your down and dirty in combat when you need to. And that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, straight and to the point, and there'll be more with more advanced ways to use this system.